Keating. Steve Corey here. Karen Richmond. We'll move on to ex officio members. Rochelle Klein.
Here.
Okay, quorum being present, we'll go ahead and proceed with business. First item on the agenda for business is adoption of the agenda. Are there any comments on the proposed agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as written. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the agenda as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. The ayes have it. We now move on to approval of the draft minutes for the March 22nd meeting. Are there any comments on the draft?
Mr. Chair, no comments. Move to approve the March 22nd minutes as written.
It's been moved and seconded that the draft minutes for the March 22nd meeting be approved as written. Further comments? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the draft minutes for the March 22nd meeting as written signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, no. Motion passes. We now move on to staff program reports. First item under staff program reports is the quarterly report. I'll turn it over to Sarah.
So this staff quarterly report is going to look a little bit different after feedback from you guys and chair and vice chair. We've included commercial tonnage and diversion information. So I'll slowly go through here and explain each of these slides. So the first one that you're looking at is the recycled tonnage report. So now we have a timeline to help kind of understand how the trend has been shaping up. So we're just doing a year. We have a good year of data. So April 2022 to March 2023. And you can see that residential is a little bit higher tonnage wise than commercial. And the last on the right-hand side, the bold, darker colors, that's the month, that's the quarter that we're specifically looking at. Unsure why there was a jump in 2023 January on the residential, but you can certainly tell that the residential side is definitely recycling more than the commercial side. And if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see the table with the raw numbers, so you can kind of have an idea. This is kind of similar to what we had last time. So you have recycling, residential, recycling, commercial, and then the trash tonnage or residential and recycling. Or I'm sorry, commercial. Does anybody have any questions on this slide? So the next one is curbside trash tonnage. And this is just, so looking at it, same concept, a year long. So we have residential and commercial on the graph. And it looks like resident or commercial increased this last quarter. Somewhat of a trend down for a little bit, but again, this is only a year, so it's still an odd year, so getting over COVID. And then on your right-hand side is what we had before, is kind of breaking down the information into pounds per household. So we have recycle per household and trash, which is pretty similar to what we've had last time. And let me know if you have any questions on this slide. And then this one's fairly new. This is looking at the diversion rate of both residential and commercial. And a diversion rate basically means of all the material that is collected by Republics or by everybody, Republic Services, organics, and glass, of all that, what is the percentage of things that are diverted? So, and then that comes out to percentage. So not right now, we're looking at for these 3 months, averaging, around 11 to 12% for residential. And then usually we average around, if you look at the trend, it's around 8, but it does jump up during the fall and January because of the leaves and the trees, which have more weight also, especially wet leaves. Commercial doesn't have a fall, collect leaves or anything. So they're pretty stable at around 8.5% average. Then you have the down below the total diversion for those 3 months that we're looking at. And then we have one more slide, the last one. So this is just looking at the last the quarter. So January, February, March, and the composition, like of all the material that we discard, what's the composition? So we have 39% is the highest, that's residential trash. Next is commercial trash. Actually, sorry, other way around. 44% commercial trash, residential is 39. Then we get trash from the transfer station. And then you see that residential commercial diversion, which is recycling. And okay, when we have green waste, that's I don't think you can really see the green sliver on here, but it's 0.4% of the whole makeup of the stuff that we discard.
Mr. Chair? A couple questions there.
Yeah.
So green waste, this is going to be our grass.
Yep, that's right. Grass and yard debris.
So what we're looking for on this chart over time is those trash percentages to decline and the other ones to increase.
Hopefully see more green would be good.
What does trash from MTS mean?
The transfer station, Meridian transfer station. So,
Trash from Meridian transfer station, what does that mean?
oh, sorry. So people who go to the transfer station, self-haul to drop off their trash, that's what that means. So basically, I'm interested in knowing all the streams within Meridian. So we have streams from Republic picking up at the curb, that's commercial and residential. Then we have streams coming from people self-hauling, dropping off to the transfer station and then bringing that up to the landfill. Then we have the recycling streams, and then we have the diversion from the MTS, that's the drop off of the recycling. And then we have the organic, the green streams.
Mr. President, members of the commission and Sarah, I guess, do we have a means to track or care, or does it matter about tracking anybody who would self-haul from Meridian to the actual landfill?
No, that one we don't. Well, unless we.
I mean, I don't know if that number is very large or that number means anything, but I would assume there are a stream that is going there that is basically lost.
Yeah, that's
cost to the city. I mean, there's pluses and minuses, but I just didn't know if that was something that is trackable and is worth tracking.
I don't think it's worth tracking. It's trackable, but it would be a lot of work. It would basically be the landfill asking, where did you produce this trash at? And then they would track it and then give it to us. I think most people would probably just go to the transfer station to drop off there. It's shorter of a distance, but yeah, there are some phantom streams that we'll never be able to track, but Republic and they've really worked and helped us get better data to try to see how much, waste we are producing in this city.
Right.
Because once you can track it, you can figure out how to reduce it or increase it depending on what you want to track.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't know if it was worth the effort to do it,
Yeah,
what we would do about it. Obviously, you'd get less people off the roadway if they took it to the transfer station versus driving it all the way out to the landfill. But depending on what's going on in their life or where they live, it may matter to them more than it was to us. So,
that's true. And the landfill can only handle so much at one time too. So yeah,
thank you.
yeah, no, good question.
Mr. Chairman and Sarah, I just have a quick question too. I'm surprised diversion at MTS is so low, given the glass is so heavy. And that includes glass and cardboard and that's everything. And it's still that tiny, huh?
It might be just these 3 months. It's only these 3 months. Yeah,
just looks
it's
so
not over but I can double check. Maybe
You
we,
feel so busy there for that sliver of.
yeah,
something. And then
in the
also,
grand scheme.
and I don't know if it's worth throwing hazardous waste in here as a diverted stream or no.
No, it's we just picked the main things that we consistently get data on. And it is it's very small that you wouldn't really see it at all. And then, other things like oil are in pounds. So that's not even, these are all tonnages. So it's still a good, 0.3, that's tonnages.
Thank you.
Sarah, excellent. Thank you. I think this transition is going to be really nice on the fact that we can get it all onto 3 pages. I know I go back to this data over the course of years, and I definitely would like to, now that we're down to 3 pages, if we could go ahead and do a handout of those 3 pages would be great. But if you would prefer, if you could go ahead and send them out attached to the agenda, we can decide on our own whether we want to print them out or not. But in a lot of us would just go ahead and save them to our drive and have them for reference when we need to get to them too. So either of those would be fine, but I hate to go back into the video files and go ahead and take notes from the video files a year later.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. I can certainly email it to you after the meeting, or I can email it when I send out the minutes. Whatever, would work.
That's a good point. Attaching them to the minutes would be good.
Okay.
And just to make sure that everyone kind of understands that based on some operational issues at this particular point and how the kind of information we're getting with household hazardous waste, that's not in this slip, but I've identified that once that data stream gets back to something we can rely on and trust, that we'll bring it back in so that we'll have an idea of what's going on with household waste collection. And similarly, I would like to keep a pulse on oil. So granted, that'd be in gallons or whatever, but just to know whether it's all of a sudden taking a huge spike up or a huge spike down later on. But
it's kind of, it's there or not there kind of thing.
true.
Yeah.
And then finally, I don't remember if we've had a report on Christmas tree collection yet. Maybe we did a month or 2 ago.
Yeah, once all those, I think it was in February, once all the winter events were finished, I gave a report specifically and had graphs for those. So fall leaves, the holiday lights, and I think I also put in bulky items, and then the Christmas trees.
Okay, like I say, I can go back to the audio files, the video files. Members of the commission, do you have any questions on the information that's been presented to us? there's any comments on the format of the presentation, that certainly is appropriate. Very good. I think once we drop into a rhythm, this will be a pretty efficient way to go ahead and communicate what's going on. Go ahead and move on to a report on the Meridian Homeowner Fair.
Yeah, so three of us, as you can see in the photo, went to the new homeowners fair, the Meridian Library. That was April 22nd, so Earth Day, and 4 hours. And I don't have my numbers down here, so I'll have to go off my brain. But it was pretty. I thought it was pretty successful. You know, this was, I think, outside of Public Works Week. I think this is the first time that all of us got together to do some tabling. So that was good. We had people come in who live in a single family house, who are making that transition, who are renting, who are going to own a house. And then we had actually a good amount of people that are living in multi-units who wanted to make that transition to owning a house. So that was interesting. And I think it was around 16 people that we talked to. There was a total, and this isn't, it counts kids, but there was, so there's a total of 84 visitors that came to the fair, and that was their first time doing it. So that's good. And then we had adults, roughly, I think 20 come to our table, and a few of them were just passerbys. I weren't sure what was going on, but the other 16 were actually came to our table to talk about solid waste. And yeah, we gave out a good amount, probably 10 brochures. That was really handy. People were interested in the event that was going on, and the battery bags were a hit too. Like, a lot of people took those. And then Conrad got rid of a lot of his swag. And yeah, and then we also had, as you can see in the picture, if people were interested in where their recycling actually goes. So we had that as a talking point. Meg, do you want to talk about anything?
I would just add that the brochure was really well received by people that got it. They liked that information. And for folks that live in multifamily, they hadn't seen it before. So although all the information wasn't applicable to them, they still, I think, appreciate that. A good piece.
Mr. Chairman and Sarah, I should have asked this ahead of time, but did you guys take recycling magnets for no, we have just the what to recycle magnets, and then for multifamily people to bring stuff to the transportation, says what can be recycled.
We gave them a brochure, and on the back has everything, and we emphasize you can take these for free to the transfer station. So, and it also talks about trash or treasure, which, they can't participate as a hunter. So we kind of talked about that too, and recycle a bicycle. Yeah. But no, that'd be something I would be interested in developing later on, especially for multi-units, could be helpful.
Members of the commission, any further questions on the homeowners fair? Thank you, Sarah, on that. I think we can go on to the Repair Cafe.
Yeah, so this sounds like it's new to this state, actually. So other places it's called like a fix-it clinic or repair fair, but basically the whole idea is if you have something small like a toaster, ripped jeans, instead of throwing them away, maybe you can get them fixed still. So you bring your broken item to this fair, and there's volunteers there that are experts in fixing these things, and they help you fix them. So that's a reuse program, keeps things out of the landfill. So Boise is actually putting this on at Jump, and on the agenda it says the time, it's June 8th, which is a Thursday, 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I'll probably go and help out, but they're actually wondering if you know anybody that can volunteer as a fixer. So a volunteer. So I can send out more information to you via email, but just to kind of, they're still looking for volunteers to help out with that. And hopefully, you know, depending on how successful it is, it would be nice to partner with them to have them, you know, maybe have something like that here in Meridian. I know I was part of a program. It was actually at the county level, and the county provided all the material and the volunteers, and they just traveled around to different cities. So it was a traveling fix-it clinic, and that was pretty efficient and well received.
Members of the commission, do you have any questions on the repair cafe?
No questions, but I think it's a great idea. So I look forward to sharing the info with folks. And
Questions? Guess we can go ahead and move on to recycle a bicycle. Eric, do you want to go ahead and start this, and then if necessary, Commissioner Walters might add to it, but anyway, go for it.
Yeah, that sounds good. So Mark and I went shopping and we bought a bunch of tools, and they're at the transfer station now. So hopefully that will help out. We've had a huge influx of requests. I think we're at maybe 170 now. So probably more than we can handle in the short run. I was able to get access to the Excel sheet of all the data. So I think that will be really helpful instead of having everything printed out in a PDF. Tomorrow, between 4 and 6, Rochelle, I, and another colleague of mine are able to go there and help work on bikes. And I know Scott's going to talk more about additional times. But one thing that we probably will need help with is we need to contact everybody to let them know, yes, we have a bike for you, or, you know, you're still on the waiting list. So if there is, we'll have to develop a scheme, but if there's anybody that's interested in just, you know, giving these folks a phone call or an email to let them know, I think that'd be really helpful. Because last year, I think we only had 50 requests. So a small group was able to deal with that. But now, since it's grown so large, we will need more hands on deck to get it all. Yeah, we could do that. And yeah, so a week before May 13th, I think that's when people are going to picking up their bikes, and May 13th is the event itself. Yeah, that's all I have on my side.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I plan to be out there tomorrow afternoon as well. Speaking with Mark, we were considering Tuesday and Thursday next week. I would like to add, thank you, Republic Services, for the covered area so we can put our gear in and stuff. And 170 is a bit much.
Mr. Chairman, I want to say that the crew has been great coming out and working, and I think we have as much fun as we do work, right? I mean, it's a fun time out there, but this year has gotten kind of out of hand for us just as far as the numbers, but I think we are going to prioritize Meridian residents first, because we got a lot of non-Meridian residents in the sign-up sheet. So we're going to try to winnow the list down just to Meridian residents first, and then work with everybody else.
Mr. Chair, so I think we had talked about it a little bit at their event, but it seems like the news coverage is what kind of spiked the number of signups, and that kind of is consistent with people outside of our area signing up as well. But after the event, I'll be interested in the folks' assessment of those signups and where that came from and how we deal with that in the future. And Commissioner Walters, like, if we can help with the phone calls, should we contact you, Sarah, or?
Or Commissioner Nelson.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know if tomorrow we can kind of talk about logistics on how we want. If you want, I can email it to you, or you can print out the spreadsheet. I'm not sure, and then we can figure out.
If we could share it as a Google Doc or.
Yeah, we could probably do
something like that, So we
Dropbox.
could check off who's
Could
been
do-
called. and-
Yeah, we could do that, something like that. So let me think about it, but by the end of this week, we'll have a plan.
Thank you.
So, yeah, but also, yes, after the news release. So we did the same thing last year. We just started earlier after the news release, because each day I'll get a batch. There was 77 on one day. So that was the most. We actually decided to stop advertising. So we had 2 more advertisings and we just aren't going to do it. So to help curb the numbers. I did get, I think, 20 in the last few days, but it has calmed down some.
And to kind of further complicate this project, Meridian Middle reached out to us for a number of bikes for their students, and we've always helped them also historically. So it's probably closer to 200 bikes that we need to fix.
And have you guys ever considered reaching out to Boise Bicycle Project, or they? Okay, I wasn't sure if they had volunteers or they do have a different mission.
Mr. Chair, Sarah, it's a terrible problem to have in trying to manage all that. But as I recall, in prior years or some period of earlier time, we had more bikes than we knew what to do with. So it's good to be able to get them out to people that need it. But how do we do that? How do we manage all of that? Yeah, I lost my other thought.
Yeah, right now we're running into, there's a lot more adults that want bikes than children. And the demand is high and the supply is low right now. So we're reaching out to everybody that we know to ask for a bike. If you guys have bikes you're not using, you can, bring them on by.
Mr. Chair, I remembered my other thought. So as I recall from the event last year, and the weather was really bad, and that was a factor. Sorry, I hope I didn't just jinx it. But we had a significant number of people that did not come and pick up the bikes that they had signed for, even after the event, and attempts were made by the volunteers to contact those folks. So I'll be interested when the event's all over, what the assessment is, and if we are actually able to distribute those 170 bikes or make contact with people or.
Well, if everything works, well, we have a different setup where they're supposed to, come to the transfer station first. So at least we don't have to just move bikes around everywhere so I think that'll help. And one thing I forgot to mention is on the sign up sheet, I do ask, how did you hear about this program? So we'll get a better gauge of where, I'm assuming it's probably the news, better gauge on that. But, and we do have on the website, anybody can ask for a bike. So maybe next year we decide that maybe we just do Meridian. So we can evaluate that after the event.
Further comments or questions on the Recycle a Bicycle? Very good. Next on this list is Trash or Treasure coming up this weekend and the spring cleanup. Sarah, go ahead and ask us for help.
Yes. Unfortunately, I'll be gone this weekend and I'm kind of bummed. But yes, if you're able to drive around and take pictures, especially pictures of a good setup, even you guys too, if you're driving around Meridian, where maybe the yard sign is out nicely and, get out your car and just take some good pictures. And we'll hopefully be able to use those for outreach or just kind of get a gauge of how people are setting out the material. That would be helpful. Yeah, we definitely have a lot. I don't know how many trash or treasure people this year. But I think I said this before, one new feature, and I'm hoping that will help spark more people getting out in the weather, obviously, and grabbing this stuff is you can click on each dot on the map and see what people have, like they've written it down. And I think that'd be helpful. And people have posted pictures as well. So yeah, just photos and then right after treasure is spring cleanup. And I'm thinking we're over what we were last year already a touch. So those text calls really help out. There's definitely a spike afterwards. Yeah, so Republic has been really good at, we've been working together on signing all those people up. So it'll be a busy week next week.
Members of the commission, do you have any questions about what's going on during the next week? Sarah.
Yeah, I'll add that our registration for both events ends tomorrow at noon. So just so if you're wanting to sign up, that would be the due date.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to go ahead and sneak in at this particular point. It is the end of the quarter, and so we usually go ahead and update the status of the Community Recycling Fund. Over the course of the last 3 months, there's been 4 payments related to the Hand in Hand We Deliver, or Hand in Hand We Recycle project, totaling just over $2,000. And so the account at this point has reached $87,000, just over 80, right around $87,000. We have the $9,400 that's set aside for the squishy water bottles and for glass. And so the available balance is right around 77,000. And hopefully we'll get back to the program at an upcoming meeting to go ahead and talk about recommendations from the committee on changes that may be useful to the program and leading up to maybe doing some expenditures from it. Are there any questions on the status of the Community Recycling Fund? Very good. Then that will complete the program reports. And we'll move into old business. The item under old business is the artist updates, which is actually the potential for an event at Arts Week. I touched base with the staff liaison with the Meridian Arts Commission and got some interesting information, which I want to pass on to the whole commission at this particular point. In their words, Arts Week has many things happening, such as music classes, art drop, gallery opening, concerts and such. We were directed to look at the website for Arts Week Meridian, which I can give the link to, but you can actually Google that pretty easy to find the spot. I'd looked at it before the note came back to us. But anyway, to see the list of happenings for last year, in their direction here this year, they're considering the community events to consolidating the community events to one bigger event area, the Community Arts Party. It's planned for September 16th. There will be chalk art, art making, performing arts, and more. The event is evolving, so we don't have hours or details yet, but I believe that the staff liaison believes that yes, the will have booths. And that we certainly are welcome to set up a booth. She suspects they're going to be 10 by 10 foot type standard booths with a couple of tables and some chairs. There aren't any rules on the, as far as what kind of an event we would be going on. That's to say whether we had a jury event or whether we had some examples up there and had citizens putting some kind of a ticket in a jar to choose which one of them the attendees thought was the best item. Let's see. That's pretty much all we got back. It was pretty open. And I toyed with the communication process on this, but I did need some advice from Mr. Neri. We had 3 volunteers for the subcommittee on the arts. And since we have 7 members, if I ever go ahead and do anything exclusively with this subcommittee, then that makes 4 and gets us some problems, right? So I pretty much need to hand this off and let the subcommittee take it completely on their own, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that would probably be better because otherwise then you're into noticing, minute keeping, things like that. So it probably would be better to just have the subcommittee handle it and then report back to the full.
And just for the record, as far as my notes, I believe we have the subcommittee here that James, Scott, and Meg are the 3 members on the committee. I'm not sure if you've got any questions of me at this particular point, that's great. Otherwise, I'm going to get out of the way and let the 3 of you go ahead and pick this thing up and see if something's possible. I see a pretty wide open opportunity. So sometimes that's more difficult when there is every possibility. But if you're comfortable with that, then I will go ahead and back up and let the 3 of you go ahead and take it and run with it.
Done and done. Can you share the person's contact information and maybe some of those emails with us? I'm thinking based on previous discussions that we would have some kind of booth, some kind of contest at that September 16th event. So barring any objection from SWAC, move forward with that plan. So the person we should contact about booths and the fair and so forth, that would be helpful.
And Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Larson, what aren't we, isn't there a prize for the commissioner? Or like it's an art contest and then you guys are gonna decide what the parameters are and who votes, but aren't we gonna have an award for that or put it up in the city or there's what you guys, I can't wait to see what you guys decide to do, I guess. But nice to know there's money if we want to do something for the winners.
So speak up with any objections, but what I'm anticipating, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, is that between now and our May meeting, we'll have a discussion and we'll make a plan for, these are going to be the parameters. This is going to be how we're going to decide the winner. This is going to be the prize. And then we'll come back to the commission for approvals and authorization, et cetera, next month or perhaps June. I don't know. We'll see how quickly we can get it done. I think at this point, it would be best to hone in on the brainstorming and just make a plan. We can always update for next year, but.
I'm going to go ahead and hand over a hard copy of this email. And it's Cassandra Schiffer is the liaison for the Meridian Arts Commission. Certainly feel free if you want to do work through Sierra to work with Cassandra, or if you, whatever you establish on your communication path. And I apologize, I do not have that artist's name that I mentioned at a couple of meetings ago, but he's certainly receptive and suggested that he would do anything from helping us advise people to participate, to participating, to anything. So I will get that name to you quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That name is in our March 22nd minutes, but if you have an email or phone number that you can share, that would be great.
And I can, if you want to send me an email, I'll then reach out to Cassandra and see how best she would want, if she just wants to work with you guys, or I'm not sure what, how her procedures are, but I can reach out.
Having talked to them, they don't want to direct us. They don't want to manage us. They really want us to go ahead and come to them with something that we want to do. And then once we come to them with that, then they'll confirm that it doesn't cause them any issues. But I think at this point, yeah, unfortunately, you'll have to kind of sit down and say, what would we like to do? Managed to bury my agenda. Thank you. That completes the old business, the artist update. We'll move on to new business. And the first item under new business is the Public Works Week tabling. Sarah, do you want to, or wait, no, I'm sorry, Meg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, a clarification question. Our agenda lists that date as June 1st. I have it as Wednesday, June 7th.
That's probably right.
Okay, June 1st is,
Yeah. I don't know why. Sorry.
it's okay.
it's,
So Wednesday, June 1st.
Yeah.
So
or June 7th.
that's, this is how these things happen. June 7th, Wednesday, 4 to 8 p.m., I believe it is. Fantastic event here. I'm traveling back from Detroit that day and will not be actually at the event. So we'll be looking for a few volunteers. I can definitely help ahead of time and get organized. We have a pretty simple table with one of those trifold stands. We put some pictures up, some information. We talk to people about recycling primarily, answer questions. Last time we did pictures of squishy water bottles, and at our last meeting, Commissioner Leckie had talked about a graph trying to illustrate what we're doing with squishy water bottles. So I will follow up with you about how we want that to display to look. We'll have handouts and information and a big bowl of candy and just work that, answer those questions as they come through. So ponder that, and I'll be looking for commitments to volunteer at the table next month on the event date. Anything and then Republic also has their table outside. So we're kind of split up and touch people a couple times with the information that we have to share. So any questions, concerns? It's really fun.
I think we're good for now, but it's always a fun event, really is. And we'll be looking forward to more information as we get closer. With that, we'll move on to the other new business item, which is a report on the Ada County landfill. The Solid Waste Advisory Committee for the landfill met this morning. And the landfill went through a number of operational items that they're going on right now. I'm just going to mention them at this point. They talked a little bit about their concrete diversion activity up there, the new tires for the equipment that's up there, an additional leachate pond that they're building up there, the development of a Z-wall for receiving public waste so that the public wouldn't be down on the face of the landfill, the institution of a point and pay process for paying with credit cards rather than the previous credit card receipt activities. They went further into a hangar demolition that's up there and an update on the collection of landfill gas that's being re-injected into, with it's being injected into the Intermountain Gas Pipeline, that project, the use of foam up there, and a general discussion about deck operations up there. But the main thing that we spent a lot of our time on was that they have realized that in order to go ahead and finance operations over the last years, they've not been setting aside money for capital projects. That's any physical changes, improvements to the land up there, as well as they're setting aside money for the closure of the landfill. It had achieved the regulatory required amount of $1 million, but they know that what they're going to need for closure in potentially as soon as 2060 is probably closer to about $30 million. They also, it's the money for each of the new phases when they go ahead and expand on that. And the financial group at the landfill had said that that needed to be financed. At present, of course, they charge $29 a ton for waste received up there. That roughly breaks down to about just a little less than $15 for operational costs, and they should be putting a little over $13 into the capital costs. That was not occurring. And so, well, at least a good portion of that was being routed back to covering operational costs. And so they see that they're going to need to go ahead and increase the amount going to operations to a little over $21. And with the $13 that's necessary for the capital stuff, they're projecting a need for the bottom line on this is that they're projecting that the gate fee for receiving waste up at the landfill will jump from $29 a ton to $36.25 a ton. So it's about a 25% increase. They were kind of soft on how good that number is, though they seem to actually be kind of standing on it. So we kind of made it clear that we were just receiving a qualitative statement that they had realized that they needed to take in some additional financing. And we needed to work on this a little bit more. We're going to be getting some spreadsheets and some other things to be able to look at. Public Works will probably do the deepest dive into the spreadsheets when they come. That 25% increase is pretty much flooring just about everybody. But I do want to point out that when it comes down to residences, depending on which size of cart you're using, 35, 60, or 90 gallon carts, the amount of your bill, let's just for round numbers, it's about $20 a month. The disposal portion of that, that's for the small cart, 35 gallon carts, about $1.40. Let's see, I've got the numbers right in front of me. So rather than just trying to work off memory, is $1.15. For the 64 gallon cart, it's $2.14. And for the 95 gallon cart, it's $3.13. So, you know, if those jump a quarter, it means that that's going to pass through 50 cents to $1 to each household. So it's not as bad when it filters through all of the systems, but that 25% increase will be a lot more significant for commercial and for a lot of people that direct haul and various other things. So this is a pretty significant issue. I suspect that they will, well, at a minimum, they will go ahead and bring us the hardest numbers at the, I guess it would be, let's see, the July quarterly meeting. That's probably way too late for all the municipalities. So it's highly likely that there'll be a special meeting to go ahead and give harder numbers, but that's only one aspect of the things that are going on in the waste industry at this point. Obviously, there's been significant inflation and various other things. So even though this fits into what I've just kind of passed on to you, understand that there may be other things that are going to hit us pretty hard in the rate review this year. It was interesting to go ahead and be presented that, again, I want to be able to look at hard copy that I've got here to make sure that I don't misstate these numbers. But the national average for the fee at a transfer station is just under $54. And in the mountain and plains area that we've got, it's just under $48. But that's kind of meaningless because that should take into account the cost of living when you talk about the numbers, and our cost of living doesn't necessarily translate to the average cost of living in the nation or in the region. So, but those are numbers that were brought to us today, so that I'm going to leave it at that right now, though I should probably ask Bob, did you feel like you needed to add anything to that at this particular moment?
Mr. Chairman, well, Bob's coming up. Is this for fiscal year 2024? So it'd be effective October 1?
Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission. So, one of the things I think is important is that we really view our relationship with Meridian and really all of our franchises as industry experts. So, we'd love to review some of those numbers with you. Rest assured, and Rochelle and I have barely been able to talk about this. We're probably going to have some public records requests to them because some of the things in that discussion, I do think were a little bit problematic. We're 100% on board with the reality. Everybody's pricing is going up. We get it. We're dealing with that as well. But there's a lot of spend on projects that is now the time. I heard some pretty large numbers with even trying to fund a future landfill, which I've run more than a couple. $60 million is a big number. That's not a landfill, that's a campus. So, we kind of see one of our responsibilities is giving the best advice, but also being part of this process. And we're going to go over those numbers and hopefully have another discussion with this committee once we kind of have an understanding of where 25% comes from, because that's a really large number. And, Mr. Chair, I really appreciate your comment. This is not an apples to apples comparison with Denver, Colorado. Or there was an example in what was sent out of California rates. We're not the same. Land is cheaper, cost of living is cheaper. A lot of our utilities and things are cheaper. We don't want to be those places. So appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'm sure we're going to be talking more about this. And I'm, as you can tell, pretty passionate about it because it's going to have a big impact, not just on Meridian, the entire county. It's a big deal.
Mr. Chair, may I ask one more question? So I was only able, I'd meet with Idaho Power, so I had to leave after 20 minutes only. But one of the things that we've talked about here in Meridian and being really supportive of is diversion. And it looks like it's just a straight, like when we lost the wood recycling rate, we saw a significant decrease in the amount of wood that was recycled. Everybody found it just more valuable to get one container and throw everything away. And so we saw a real spike in what was considered waste at the landfill. And is there an opportunity? I know they just presented just taking that flat rate and escalating at 25%. Is there an opportunity to go back to them and say, look, all your construction costs will be staved off, the useful life of the landfill will extend if you actually price materials differently to incentivize its diversion, because that's been certainly one of our goals here with SWAC for a very long time.
Rochelle, that's an extremely valid and important point to go ahead and have on this. I was a little surprised in their presentation that they had. That the way that they're supposed to operate is to have three accounts. One of them is for closure, one of them is for capital, and one of them is for operational accounts. And the money's supposed to go into the various areas. And the cash balance graph for the capital account that they showed, it went below zero this year. And of course, that's going to be a rather major problem for them, for their financial controls people. It does immediately start going back up. They start accumulating cash, but in a couple of years, they'll have to start their work on phase 5, which requires some design costs, and then the construction costs take it down to well below zero again, and even further below for 6. And then they show for phase 7 ending up extremely below. And so I'm afraid at this particular point in the course of the next 6 months, we're looking at getting a Band-Aid. And then after that, we're going to have to really take a very hard look at everything to make sure we do the right thing. Recognizing that when waste gets diverted from the landfill, they'll have less money coming in and less money going to the capital accounts. But it'll all work out as long as you think it through, because those capital expenditures get pushed out. So they can end up at the same balance when they finally need to go ahead and do all that work. But it's going to require a lot of forethought. And I think there's room for everyone in this room to be involved in this, to make sure that as we transition into this and prepare for the outgoing capital activities, that they do have the money to take care of it. And there's some operational changes that I know they're initiating at this particular point. And hopefully the things that happen as a result of that, that operational change might make things be a little bit better. I don't want to speak for them, but I will go ahead and say that I question, well, let's see. I want to put a very positive spin on a lot of things at this particular point. And I want to go ahead and say that what's being talked about up there is getting us back to the right operational phase. And I think that there are some bright days ahead, but we may not get there quickly. And I'm sorry for being so cryptic on that, but it's rather important not to go ahead and name names or go ahead and identify specific issues. So I'm not going to do that. So with that limited information, if you've got any questions about what I just discussed and the numbers that I had, I will do the best I can to handle them. And obviously, one of the things too is to go ahead and, well, anyway, no, I better not go there either. and I've managed to bury my agenda again, but I do believe we've gone through all of the subjects that are on the agenda at this particular point, which allows us to go ahead and move on to, is there any items that should be brought before the commission at this
I'm
time?
sorry, Mr. Chair, before we move on, I'm just trying to formulate a question on item 9 and struggling to do so. At a very high level, what role do you see SWAC in this process?
This issue has to be presented by the landfill to the county commission for their consideration. The county commission will have to go ahead and decide whether to implement it or not. That's the process where we have involvement. Our comments on the proposal need to go forth. I'm expecting that maybe in the next couple of months that's going to be happening at this. And I suspect probably what we'll do is try to do a partnership between staff and ourselves and probably Republic to go ahead and try to coordinate comments on this to make sure that what's being proposed is the best proposal that can be brought forward.
So commissioners should expect to hear from you when that proposal has been made available for comment, or?
It is not available for comment at this particular point. The numbers are just too soft on it, but I do expect at some time in the future that it will be made available. And it'll be pretty high on my watch list to see what's going on, because I fear that it'll be a very short window to review and comment. So hopefully, I think we can probably plant the seeds to go ahead and get notice that a value is out there that they're standing on to go ahead and present, and that it'll give us enough early time to be able to look at it and be able to comment. But it will depend on probably staff and myself, maybe Bob, to go ahead and be watching what's going on and identifying that a number has finally been proposed and that it's going to be going to the commission so that we know that we've got our time to be able to go ahead and develop comments.
The landfill wasn't very clear on when they would have that at all, or we just said the cities voiced their opinion that, you know, our rates season's coming up and it would be helpful for us to know as soon as possible what their hard number, what they're proposing. So everything is really up in the air, unfortunately, right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Sayard. I appreciate that. I understand that we don't yet have a proposal and we don't know exactly what is going to come. I'm hearing that, Mr. Chair, that you will be watching very closely for when that proposal is actually issued. My question is, when that happens, is that something that you intend to share with the commission as a whole? Or do you intend on SWAC's behalf to work directly with the other partners and share those comments? I'm looking for the task that SWAC will be asked to do.
I think it depends on if the proposal is public, then I think it makes sense for the chair to share it with this commission and you guys talk about it. And if I think you as a group, it wouldn't be us adding on to what you guys want to talk about. I think it would be you individually as a city SWAC would, if you wanted to write comments to county SWAC on you are for it or against it or whatever you want to do, I think that would be the time. But if it's not public, then that would come to the city and then we would work through it until it became public. I think that makes the most sense.
Thank you.
And I'll say ideally, I would like to be able to go ahead and forward that information to each of you. And depending on what's necessary, if we need to have a special meeting to go ahead and be able to consolidate comments, then you may see a request for a special meeting to be put together. If it fits in with the regular meeting, then great. And if not at that particular point, I suppose it would still be legitimate for me to just say, if you've got comments, please forward them to Sarah, and the city of Meridian will consolidate comments to send forward. That would avoid having us have to meet if the timing doesn't work well. But those would be my preferences at this point, is to, yes, give you the opportunity to go ahead and develop comments and to go ahead and get your comments included in what we're doing. And I hope I'm going to have the opportunity to accomplish that. And with that, then going back to where I was, if there's any additional items that we need to come before the commission at this point, now would be the appropriate time for them. Very good. Then I'll go ahead and call the meeting adjourned at this point. It's 8 minutes after 5. And I, as always, appreciate the contributions that you all make on this stuff. And we'll see you next month.